Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 44 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, we've got a couple of works in progress. Nothing super new to the channel, but I've made pretty good progress on a couple of projects that I've chatted about in the past. It is a beautiful spring day today. It is sunny, there's not a cloud in the sky. It's in the high 50s. I think it might even hit in the 60s today. So it felt like a really good day for me to wear my Yarn Makes Me Happy t-shirt. It just felt like a really good day to wear a t-shirt because it's nice and warm. Also, I am going to be trying on one of my works in progress, so it seemed like a good day to wear a t-shirt instead of a hand knit. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So we'll chat about my first work in progress, which this one is exciting only because I know I've chatted about these a lot in previous episodes, but this particular project has been on hold for a while I've been waiting for yarn. And I had to kind of make it work, and I ended up finding a solution, which made me super happy. So you may remember this guy. This is my original Tally Alley sock. This is the one that started it all. It was the one that inspired my design. What I really loved was pairing this salty blonde fibers burn book with just a really solid navy. I thought the navy was a really nice offset for such a bold contrast color. And so this guy knit up super quickly, and then I did a whole bunch of other versions with different colors and striping and all sorts of things. But I still wanted the pair of these because I absolutely love these. But I did not have enough navy yarn left, and I was super bummed about it. I even thought about doing the reverse to where the burn book would be the main color and the navy would be a contrast, but I don't even think I would have had enough for that. So what I needed to do was find a good comparable navy yarn, and I wanted it to feel similar in structure, so it needed to be another 80-20 yarn so that it would have that nice durable feel to it. And I searched all my local yarn stores. I went everywhere I could think of that might have a good comparable option, and it was really tricky because I found navies that either leaned a little too royal blue, or I would find navies that leaned a little too blue-black, like almost on the black side of navy, and I wasn't finding a good match. And I really needed it to be like a properly blue navy. I would say this is like a blue forward navy, you know, like it's properly navy, but it's got a nice rich blue quality to it. So once I exhausted all my options that I could drive to, then I started looking online. It's always a little scary to try and do color matching online because you don't know if your screen temperature is off, if their photography temperature was off. Just, you never know, right? So the best thing you can do is look at the photos and then go to Ravelry and see how those photos turn out and just try and find a happy medium somewhere and think like, okay, if the darkest end is here and the lightest end is here, maybe it's going to end up somewhere around here. Will this work in the color range I'm looking at? And sometimes I even find what's more helpful is for me to actually refer to a photo of what I'm trying to match instead of the real thing, because again, you're looking at screens and you're dealing with glare, and it's never an accurate representation when you're doing that, but for me it's kind of helpful to see that flat color next to one another without the light kind of showing through it when you're looking at something in real life. So after much digging, I went to Wool & Co. And because I figured that would probably be the best option for just a large selection of all the different types of yarn I could look for. And you know, you're able to filter really well. This is not sponsored, by the way, but you're able to filter down. So I was able to filter by sock, make sure I was getting the right weight. So I didn't want anything 75-25. I was looking for either 80-20 or 90-10, being 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, or something to that effect, just so it had that same sort of feel and composition. I find that those, like an 80-20 or a 90-10, feels a little bit thicker and hardier, whereas the 75-25 can sometimes feel much thinner, and that's just because it's got a little bit more nylon and a little bit less wool. So after searching, I narrowed it down to a couple of different yarns. It was between Hedgehog Fibers yarn and the Sandnes Garn Sisu. Obviously, you can tell that I ended up buying the Sandnes Garn Sisu. The Hedgehog Fibers one was beautiful, but I was a little worried that it was maybe a little too tonal and a little too blue. And also it was like 3 times the price of this guy. This Sandnes Garn Sisu, you're able to buy in 50-gram hanks, or 50-gram skeins rather, and I just think that's super helpful. Also, I believe this was $8.95 US on their website. And not just that, it was on sale at the time. So I bought a few other colors, and I will show those a little bit later. But I looked at this, I looked at the Sisu yarn, and wouldn't you know it, I don't even have the color name. It does have a color name, I think. I don't think it's just a number, I hope. Maybe, I feel like on their website it had a color name. So if it had a color name, I will pop it up here. Otherwise, it's just 5575, which is really not an exciting way to describe a color. But I looked at the Ravelry project pages that use this yarn, and I felt like it was a very good match to this guy. And like, you can even see, even just holding these two up, you can see how similar those are. So obviously the ultimate test is to knit it up, and I am happy to say that these guys look pretty interchangeable. I could not be more thrilled at how closely those two knit up. Now, this has also been blocked, so once it's blocked, it is possible that the color might fade a little bit, so we'll see what happens there. I think if you look really closely, this one might be slightly paler, as in it almost looks like this one is a slightly more faded version, almost like the sat in the sun a little bit compared to this one. But honestly, even on screen, you can sort of tell. In real life, when I look at them side by side, you really can't tell. Like, you'd really have to make an effort to be like, wait a second, are those different? And so yeah, I think once they're knit up, I don't think you're gonna notice a difference. And I'm so relieved about that, because I have been wanting the pair to this guy since I made the first one months ago. So long story very long, this is the second sock of my first pair of Tally Alley socks. And so again, the main color is Sandnes Garn Sisu, and then the contrast color is this Salty Blonde Fibers Burn Book it's the 2-ply sock is the base. You guys know how much I love Burn Book. I could use it in everything and be happy. It's such a fun contrast color. Look at that. It's a pretty wild and crazy color. I used these on a pair of my Ciroc socks as is, and they're pretty wild. I think it's still really beautiful, and it highlights the pattern well, but it's a wild sock. So it's really fun to see it kind of toned down in this way, and I think it works really well in this kind of simplified color work motif. So hopefully I will have a matching pair of these soon that I can actually wear, so this guy won't be sadly sitting in my cabinet alone for much longer. Just a really happy story, because I feel like there's so many times when you go to buy yarn online and it's just not at all the color you were envisioning, and it's nobody's fault. Like, it's not the fault of the dyer, it's not the fault of the retailer. A lot of the times it's just really hard to color match this stuff. So that was a very, very happy story, and I'll actually show you guys now instead of at the end. I'll show you guys all of the other colors I got. So the yarn was on sale, and it was one of those things where I always kind of forget that with Wool & Co. Shipping is free. So in my mind, I'm always thinking, well, I need to make this purchase worth it. And so I was looking at some other colors. You know, I love knitting socks. You know, I love knitting color work. So I'm always looking to expand my sock color palette. And so these are all the colors that I got, and I just think they are so pretty. This guy's falling off a little bit. I know there's probably a better way for me to show this. It's kind of fun, actually. This is pretty close to my shirt color. But I don't know, I was just picking out mostly springtime looking colors. I thought these looked really springy. And then I will say the exception is probably these two, but this is just because I felt like I had a gap in my sock color palette where I didn't have like a really nice kind of rosy burgundy or like a proper gold. So these are just kind of like filling out the color palette in my stash. So yeah, these were, I actually got, let me see. So I got all of these for just a little bit more than I was going to pay for a single skein of hedgehog fibers. So, you know, for whatever that's worth. Okay, so that was my happy story. That's my first little work in progress. Little sock, hopefully that won't be too much longer. Although I will say my time has been mostly devoted to this next project, which hopefully will look a lot further along than when I shared it last time. I'm throwing yarn across the room. But if you watched me a couple of weeks ago, then you will know that I have started working on a design, a cardigan design, where I am using So Happy Jane confetti worsted in the color Little Bit Shy. I want to show that again because look at how fabulous that yarn is. Look at the speckles in there. So this is lovely yarn. It's 89% domestically raised merino, and then it's got 6% recycled acrylic, 5% rayon neps, and it's all very sustainable. All of anything that isn't natural wool is recycled, and it's not superwash, so it's just a regular wool, which means you can spit splice it, and it's also just incredibly soft. So it's 20.1 microns, and this has made such a lovely fabric. I'm really, really enjoying working with this so very much. So I will go ahead and hold it up in the best way I can. As you can see, I have made pretty good progress from when I was chatting about it last time. When I shared it with you guys last time, I think it was just a little bit of the back and like one of the front flaps. So you can see I've come a long way. You might also notice that this is like blocked and unblocked in very weird ways because I blocked it, I think, when I had done a little bit of the back and one front panel because I needed to see how the links were. So you can see that half of the back is blocked and then the other half isn't. And then on this side, I think the right panel is blocked and the left panel isn't. So it could probably do with another good blocking before I make any more big decisions, but I guess I'll go ahead and put it on because that might be helpful, how you can see what I'm talking about as I am chatting about it. I'm also going to grab the yarn I dropped on the floor. Okay, so it looks a little funny right now because it kind of looks like I'm wearing a vest, but I promise you this will have sleeves eventually. But this is how it's looking so far. So let me see which side. Yeah, this side has been blocked up to like here from that front panel. So you can see that the sleeve is laying decently flat to how it's going to lay, whereas this side has not been blocked, so it's curling. But we can expect that, trying to kind of lay it how it'll be, assuming I'm buttoning it. Yeah, that the drop shoulder edge will probably stop somewhere around there. Obviously, once we attach stitches and build out the sleeve, it will pull it down a little bit more, just the weight of it. But that's how the shoulder's looking. And this detail, which I'm super thrilled about, loving that shoulder detail. So that is the seam that runs along the side and then flows right into the patterning. And then it picks up there. And yeah, so we've just got this really nice broken rib pattern happening. And then we've got a 1x1 button band that you work at the same time. You're only using one needle for everything, one needle size. So you don't have to switch needles. You don't have to pick up a whole bunch of button band stitches. I debated doing a picked up button band, but I really wanted this to be kind of an easy cardigan. I wanted something really effortless and easy and fun to knit. And I love it when I don't have to pick up a ton of stitches, especially along this whole portion. Like I just don't want to do that if I don't have to. I will on occasion when I want a certain look, but this is meant to be a little bit more casual and fun. You know, you can see we've got a bit of a deep V. I didn't make it too deep. I have my first buttonhole right there. So it should close right around there. So it gives a nice V, but it's not super, super long. It's not in the territory of like one of those big oversized like grandpa cardigans, but it's just a nice oversized V-neck cardigan. If you hear that clinking, Bagel found one of his old toys. He's got a little ball that used to be in one of those little ball toys that you play with, and somehow he pulled it out, it's escaped, and so that's what he's doing. Anyway, back to the cardigan, because that's what you're here for. So, all right, this is how it's looking. I'm gonna stand up a little bit so you can kind of see. So this is how it's fitting me right now. I have just, let's see. Yeah, I finished the 3rd buttonhole, and I'm a little past the halfway point for my 4th buttonhole. I'm actually trying to decide right now if I want to do a 5th buttonhole or not. I had designed this in mind when I did all the measurements and numbers for buttons and the distance between them. In my mind, I was just going to stop at 4 buttons. To where after the 4th button, you know, you'll have a little bit more length and then it'll be done. But now that I'm seeing it, I'm kind of debating if I want to do a 5th buttonhole. So we've got 3rd buttonhole here. The 4th buttonhole is probably going to be about here. And then that means that it's going to cut off somewhere around here. And I'm just trying to figure out if that's good or if I want it a little bit longer. I'm always a little bit nervous about making things too long because of my shape. So I am a pear shape, which means that I have wider hips than my waist, and my upper body is overall just narrower. So my hips are my widest point. And so the one thing I always want to avoid is having a garment that hangs over the widest point of my body, because I just don't necessarily like the way that looks on me. It can feel a little bit frumpy on there, but then at the same point, I don't want things super cropped because I want them to kind of hit right at the beginning of my hips, and that's always a little bit tricky to get just right. So that's kind of the dilemma I'm in right now, is do I just stick with, I do my 4th button and then have it about here and maybe that's okay? Or do I want to make it a little bit longer with a 5th button? So we're gonna see. Maybe if you have opinions, let me know. I'm very back and forth on it. Originally, like I said, my plan was just 4 buttonholes and done. And obviously in the pattern, I will have it to where you can make that choice yourself as well. I even have notes about how to modify the length in between your buttonholes. So if you just want 4 buttons, but you want a longer length, you can determine how many more rows you need to knit per buttonhole to extend that. So it's really up to you and how you want to do that. I worry that 5 buttons might be a little bit too long for me and in general. So I want to make sure that it's not feeling cropped, but I also want to make sure that it's not feeling too long. It's like with cardigans, you have to get a good length too, just because either you are doing like a duster where you're committing to kind of a long cardigan, or you are having it to fit right around where it hits at your hips. So that's the point where I'm at right now, where I basically just need to make a decision and commit to it. And I mean, the big thing, the reason why it's a little bit tricky here is because obviously when you get to your last buttonhole, you want to start your ribbing maybe a little bit sooner. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to do like the halfway point because that would be quite a bit of ribbing. But I do want to be cognizant of knowing when my last buttonhole is so I can start ribbing before we get to the buttonhole. And so I just need to kind of make those decisions as I'm getting here. And what I'm actually thinking I might do is get to sort of my point of no return, which is probably in a couple of more rows. And I'm probably gonna block it at that point. I think it'd be good to block anyway, just to kind of see how it's fitting. The ribbing, obviously, it's going to stretch out a little bit widthwise. Because it's broken rib, once you block it, it kind of expands to what it's going to be and stays that way. It doesn't do the scrunchy thing. So that means that it will be a little bit wider, just a little bit, not a ton. And we have to see if that's going to change the length at all. And so I think that's going to help me kind of figure it out. And honestly, even at that point, what I might do is pick up a sleeve and work on that for a little bit, just to see how that's going to look, how that's going to fit. With drop shoulders, the sleeves are just as important as everything else to the fit, because it's adding a lot of weight to the garment and it changes how it sits on your body. Because, you know, right now it's sitting on me like a vest, and when I've got sleeves, it's gonna hang a little bit differently. It's going to sit a little bit differently. So it's possible that I may not decide on the final body length until everything else is done. And it's probably a good thing too, because I have plenty of yarn. That's not an issue, but I used a significant portion of one of my skeins for swatching, which is to be expected. And I also, in my mind, I had the idea of this length. So knowing that, I had given myself the rest of the skein specifically for this project. And as is, if I lengthen it, then we might be running into dicey territory where I might need to actually like rip out all of those swatches and utilize that for my yarn, which is also something I don't really want to have to do. So we'll see. I might be totally fine with the 4 buttonholes and calling it, but what I don't want to do is have my 4th buttonhole and then a lot of length after where you've got a flap. So I need to get the length just right where I'm feeling really good about it. So I'm just playing around with that, but I'm loving this. I'm really excited for this to be worked up. Also, I have a friend who reached out to me about buttons that she hand makes, and so I'm really excited about that. I'll say more when it is more of a reality, but I think we're gonna have some really, really cute buttons for this. And I think they're gonna go really well with the cardigan. And so I'm thrilled about that. But yeah, so I'll stand again for you to see. I purposely wore jeans so you could kind of see how it will look and fit. Obviously, it's a little hard to tell when it's on the needles, right? But this is basically where it's sitting now. So it's funny because when I was looking in the mirror, I was thinking, man, it needs to be a lot longer. But when I'm looking on the screen, I don't know if it's because I'm looking down, but I don't feel like 4 buttonholes is necessarily bad, right? Because it'll be about here in length, which actually is probably what I want. And I'm wearing like normal rise jeans. I think these are like a mid-rise, so they're not high-waisted by any means. They're not low-rise because I don't ever want to have to wear low-rise again if I can help it. But I think if I can get away with that length with a mid-rise, then even like a higher rise jean will look even better with it. So we're gonna see. Maybe 4 buttons is the way to go, but let me know your thoughts. It's helpful to get outside opinions on sort of those things. Like, do I want to go with the big, totally oversized, or do I want oversized with a little bit of a crop? I don't know. Anyway, so that's basically what I've been working on. This is what I've been grabbing for pretty much every night. I feel like I've made really great progress. Obviously, there's certain points where I've had to rip back and redo the math, redo measurements, and that's just a part of how this all goes. But seeing it take shape is really exciting, and I think it's gonna be really nice once I start to see some sleeves on here. So I suspect that I will finish up the length on this tonight, kind of my point of no return, as I was saying, and try and get it soaking tonight so that tomorrow morning I can look at it and make some decisions and maybe pick up a sleeve. But yeah, that does it for my works in progress. It's just these 2. This is what I've been doing. It's what I've been working on. You know, when I'm designing, things are just much slower than when I am actively just knitting and not having to think about it. So something like this might move quicker if it was like, if I was just reading a pattern, but being that I'm going back and forth and doing a lot of different math on it, it just takes a little bit longer, and that's okay. So that's all my knitting for this week. That's everything I've been working on. We can go ahead and chat about book chat now. The book that I have been reading is 1, 2, 3, and this is by Lori Frankel. I'm not enjoying it. I'm having a hard time getting into it. That's what I will say. So the narrators are basically 3 triplets. They are 16-year-old girls, and they are triplets. And they were born in this town where you're starting to sort of uncover that some things happened to really hurt the town and the people in the town. Basically, where I'm at this point, what they've kind of uncovered, you're learning a little bit more about the town in each chapter. Each chapter is narrated by a different sister, and so each chapter is literally just 1, 2, or 3 to kind of symbolize each sister in the order that they were born as triplets. And so you're watching the series of events go down, kind of down the line of each of the sisters and how they are experiencing it. And so what we've uncovered so far is that I think there used to be some sort of a chemical plant in the town. It's a very small town, and so a lot of the town was employed at this chemical plant. And apparently it was emitting all sorts of toxins and poisons into the water and maybe even other things in the town. And so there are a lot of people with a lot of disabilities, and a lot of people have died, and a lot of people with just tons of health issues. And it's just kind of, so the triplets that were born, there's one who is kind of considered in the normal, quote unquote, category, if you will, like she's healthy, she was born with no complications. The second of the 3, she has severe autism, and you kind of deal with her struggles with social anxiety and trying to be present in a way that doesn't make people uncomfortable and doesn't make her uncomfortable. And then the 3rd sister has cerebral palsy, and so she has a series of difficulties that she's dealing with every day, all the time. But what is interesting is that in a town like this, she is actually one of the more normal ones, just because so many people have been affected by this chemical plant and what it's done to the town. And so it's interesting in that way, but it's just kind of a tough read because it's so sad. It's just quite depressing. Everybody is struggling with some sort of health issue or emotional issue from people that they've lost, mental issues just from everything that's happened. The town has really kind of fallen apart. The chemical plant is gone. I guess the family who was in charge of that chemical plant, obviously they got away with it. I don't think there were really any ramifications. And I believe some of the family end up coming back, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I do think I will finish this book because I do want to know what happens, but it's just kind of a downer to read. So it's written well. It's interesting to hear from each of the sisters' perspectives, and I do think that's, as just going in as a reader, I can very much appreciate that, and I do think it's very well written. Just if this is something that you're thinking about picking up, just know that it's not probably going to be a feel-good book. So if you're looking for an escape, this is not going to be it. But if not, then yeah, this might be right up your alley. So yeah, we'll keep plucking away at this guy and see what happens next. And that's basically all I've got. So if you stuck around until now, thank you so much for watching. In just a couple of weeks, we have some really fun announcements coming up. May is going to be a big month with some things going on, so there's going to be more to share there, so stay tuned for that. If you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.